In early August, Mayor Jim Kenney signed a curfew reform bill into law. Introduced earlier this summer by at-large City Council member Catherine Gilmore Richardson, the bill aimed to simplify curfew times and to provide funding for community resource evening centers for the upcoming budget. Funding for these centers, or CRECs, was approved for nearly $2 million to be split across 3 pilot locations. The bill also removes fines for curfew violations that families were forced to pay. Failure to pay fines could sometimes lead to more drastic penalties. Philadelphia hasn't seen evening resource centers since 2008, when Mayor Michael Nutter chose to end the city's program. Kendra Vandewater, co-founder of the youth empowerment organization Yeah Philly, had this to say about the program's removal.
So I don't think that investing in young people is something that we say is too expensive, right? Like, we have the issue of we don't invest enough in young people. And when we don't have programs that young people actually want to show up to, why would we continue to pour money into, but also think about how we're providing these programs? So I get that people are saying, oh, it may be a waste of money, but it's really not on the young person utilizing it. It's on the center to make sure that they are able to support young people and have a space where young people want to go.
After curfew centers were closed in 2008, children were taken to police stations when parents or guardians couldn't be reached. Now, the new centers will begin operating on October 1st. The organizations and exact locations have yet to be chosen. PhillyCAM was able to speak with the bill's sponsor. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson said that an unnecessary introduction to the criminal justice system was one main reason for introducing changes to curfew. Anti-violence prevention was another important determining factor.
The locations were selected based on the data we have relative to the levels of gun violence in a community mixed with the amount of curfew violations we see in those communities. So our goal is really to address the communities who are most in need of service and align the resources from the community resource centers and other anti-violence initiatives to those communities. And I think what's really important, what we're calling the CRECs, is that there's a component where they must provide transportation for young people who need to be taken home. And what that will do will help us to really decrease the amount of negative interactions that young people could potentially have with our criminal justice system.
Although Philadelphia police are less involved in the curfew violation process, the city is involved in other ways via the Department of Human Services. Some youth advocates, like Vandewater with Yeah Philly, said that this is a beneficial step. However, there's still hesitancy about city agency and system involvement.
No, I don't think anybody should have to pay a fine for a curfew. And I think about my own story, which is even why I do this work. When I was a teenager, I got stopped by the police for a curfew violation, waiting for my mom to pick me up from a birthday party in the 22nd Police District. And it ended up me being severely beat by the police and being in a juvenile detention center. So this is unacceptable to me. And while we think about ways to eliminate police contact with young people, I think we have to think further around what they're actually getting from the community centers, but also not pushing them further into the system and penalizing parents and teens as well.
Sure. So what I think is important to understand is that every contract opportunity that comes from the city sort of is filtered through a department. And because the community evening resource centers are seeking to help young people who are minors who may be in violation of curfew, we partner with the Department of Human Services, who works to help our young people in the city of Philadelphia. So the centers will be run by the organizations that are chosen. Those organizations will have to partner with community-based organizations as well as a faith-based organization in that area. So there will be minimal DHS involvement as far as running the center on a day-to-day basis. They are simply working through the RFP process and will be there as a resource if young people need additional supports.
I don't know. I think there needs to be a lot more work and trust rebuilt with the city and the organizations that are overseeing and implementing this. So it's not just something like, yes, we need it. We serve young people. You know, it's a good idea in theory, but I'm not convinced. And I think that there should be a lot more thought into what's the next step after the fact.
The York Daily Record reported on Philadelphia's Department of Human Services in April of this year. Philly ranks highest among the country's 10 largest cities in child removal. The article reports that not all of those removals were due to child abuse. Hesitancy around the organization's involvement comes in part from this rate of removal from families in low-income communities. Some parents could be working late hours or not be able to afford childcare. This, in turn, could lead to families being separated should an agency like DHS find cause to intervene. At the very least, there's relief over streamlined curfew times and the fact that fines are no longer a part of enforcement in Philadelphia. When organizations are chosen next month, the 3 pilot programs will be evaluated for effectiveness over 1 year before new contracts are drawn up. Reporting for PhillyCAM Voices, I'm Tom Riese.